What's up, Grizzlies fans? Happy International Women's Day. We will celebrate tonight with a game against the Atlanta Hawks here at home. Joining me to talk about these two teams, both on win streaks, is Brad Rowland. Brad, these two teams, like I mentioned, both on two-game winning streaks. The Grizzlies have won over Brooklyn and Philly. Almost, I don't want to say more impressively, but the Hawks have won two big games against two good teams, the Knicks and the Cavs, and they're coming into this one on the road now as a team in the NBA that is top 5 in points per game. What has it been like playing without Trae Young as their leader? It looks like a whole bunch of guys are getting numbers up.
Yeah, and that's kind of the what you'd expect, you know. Other guys have more responsibilities, they have more usage, they take more shots, etc. Life is harder for everybody on offense without Trae Young. I think they would all admit that, and they probably already have admitted that on some level in the last week or two since Trae went down.
Mhm.
But they do have a very capable number one guy in DeJounte Murray, so that makes it a little bit easier. Not everybody has that when a guy goes down, and they're pretty open about like, hey, we can just give it to DeJounte and have him be kind of the guy for most of the night, and that makes it easier. But it's still a challenge, and they've kind of won with their defense. Like you mentioned, the two wins they had, they were mostly defense first performances, and that makes sense. They're a little bit more defense first without Trae, but I think that they're doing as well as they could be expected. They had a couple rough performances against Brooklyn last week, but like you said, they've won two games in a row, and the vibes are okay given how injured they are. I know the Grizzlies are equally or even more so injured than the Hawks are right now, but the vibes are okay.
Yeah, actually, while you're mentioning that, let's do a quick injury report for the Grizzlies. Everyone who is out is still out. Jaren looks like he's good to go. Gigi Jackson is questionable and Luke is doubtful. And then, of course, for the Hawks, there is a bunch as well, but I guess the main two are Trae Young and Jalen Johnson, I guess, after a big game against the Knicks, did not play against the Cavs. Um, I want to talk about something that you mentioned, and it was the defense kind of first wins. Because last time these two teams played, yes, it was December 23rd. Yes, it was a game where everyone played. Des, Ja, Jaren, they each had 20, 30 points. And then Trae, DeJounte. Like it was a healthy game. But the Grizzlies did score 125 points. If you look at the defensive ratings between these teams, the Grizzlies are a top 10 team. The Hawks in general are bottom 3 defensive rated team. But you said without Trae, they're having to rely more on their defense. What changed?
Yeah, like you said, they're not great defensively
Mhm.
on the whole. They're a little bit small in general, but they're a little bit less small without Trae. And Trae is their best player, no question about
Yeah.
that. But he is a 6'1" guard.
Mhm.
And in general, when you don't have that guy, you're just a little bit bigger. DeJounte is not playing point guard. He's more of a point guard in terms of size. He usually plays the two next to Trae, so that gets you a little bit bigger as well. And not that that matters too much, but the backup point guard is Trent Forrest, who's basically a defense first kind of very good defender, not the greatest offensive guy in the world. So they're just leaning a little bit further in that direction personnel wise. They're playing a little bit slower too, which kind of helps sometimes to kind of grind away. I'm just to use the Memphis term to grind away. Um, and yeah, it's interesting. Like they're still not great defensively. I don't want to mislead people. They're not, but I think their personnel right now is a little bit better. This is the first time they will have played without Jalen Johnson in a while, and he definitely helps their defense too. So not that it's an excuse, but they're going to be a little smaller than they have been the last couple games. So we'll be learning together what they're going to look like without Trae and Jalen in this game for the first time. So that'll be a question mark. But in general, the Hawks are kind of trying to piece it together, just like the Grizzlies are.
I want to run through some numbers specifically for a reason. So stay with me. The last two games, Sadiq Bey had 23 points and 17 points. So in the last two, DeJounte Murray had 18 and 21. DeAndre Hunter had 17 and 22. And then Bogdanovich had a big game, 23, and then fell off a little bit and only had 5 in your last game. Who of those four give the Grizzlies defense the biggest troubles today?
I think the guy they have to account for the most is probably still Murray. He has the ball in his hands the most. He's the one that's making the most decisions, both to shoot, distribute, etc. But I would probably go with Bogdanovich. He's kind of the guy that the Hawks he unlocks their offense. Now he's not their best offensive player because that's Trae and then even DeJounte, but their on-off numbers, like they're generally way better when Bogdanovich is a good, but especially when he's playing in general. He's their best shooter. He's the one guy on their roster that's like an actual fire drill for the defense when he's on by 3-point line. Like they have guys that can make shots, but he's the one guy that everybody's kind of scared of as a shooter. So I would say he's probably the one that I would circle. He's not always super consistent. Like I think he's banged up right now. He's got sort of like a right hand issue that's not listed on the injury report, but they've talked about it openly. So not 100% necessarily, but he would be the guy I would be most accounting for if I was a Grizzlies, because he's kind of the only guy like him on the roster.
Okay, on the opposite end, Jaren Jackson Jr. is kind of the last like original starter standing. He leads the team in a lot of categories, 22.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game. The Grizzlies, I mean, all-star level guy. What's that matchup look like to you? Is it DeAndre Hunter?
Yeah, it's interesting because without this, it would have been Jalen Johnson, and now he's out. So they're trying to, and we have not seen that. So it's like this guessing game. I think they'll probably have Sadiq Bey probably start on him. Bey is probably going to start at the 4 if I had to guess. We don't know as we're recording this because the Hawks are very close to the vest on that kind of stuff. But
it's very early for everyone who's
it is very early. But they don't have a great matchup for Jaren. Jaren's length in particular, like Sadiq Bey and DeAndre Hunter, they're more like 6'7", 6'8" guys. They're not the Jalen Johnson's more like that 6'10" rangy guy. So they don't have a great matchup for Jaren, to be honest with you. That you might see them play their centers on Jaren a little bit, depending on what the Grizzlies do on their end of the floor. So they'll be worried about him because, like you said, he's number one on the scouting report for this one by a lot. But I would imagine you'll probably see Sadiq Bey, maybe Bruno Fernando, Clint Capella, multiple guys. It won't be a one-on-one for him for sure.
Like I mentioned last time these two teams played, it looked very, very different. 125 to 119. I get it, but that points in the paint battle was 176 to 58. And looking at the last couple games from the Atlanta Hawks, that seems just like that seems like the outlier. And now the Grizzlies, of course, when Ja is playing, they get a whole lot of points in the paint because he drives. They had Bismack Biyombo at that point, so another big down low. If you were to rub a crystal ball and you could see into the future, what type of game do you expect going like for tonight? Just because like these rosters are so different than last time we played.
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start, just that they are so different. And not only Ja, but Trey. So clearly the two guys who break the defenses down on offense. I think this is going to be, a lot more slow paced. I don't want to use the word ugly, but a little bit uglier, a little bit more of that.
You can use the word grind again. It's okay. We'll let you borrow it.
That works. A little bit, it'll probably be a little bit more defense first in general, just a lack of creation on both sides. They don't have, Murray's still an established guy to do that, but as far as points in the paint are concerned, you kind of have to get to the paint to score there. You know what I mean? That's kind of the thing. These teams are going to pack it in and probably make you try to shoot from the outside a little bit more, maybe some more 3-point variance. Like whoever shoots better from 3 is probably going to have an advantage in this game. That's not breaking news, but even more so in a game where you don't have those creators, that I think both teams are probably going to smartly pack the paint and make you beat them from the outside. So if I had to guess, probably lower scoring, maybe not as easy shots on either side of this one. And part of that's talent, part of that scheme, and also, some grinding. It's also March. This, like the NBA gets a little bit of its slog sort of in March sometimes. Like guys are banged up. This is a game with tons of injuries, and it's kind of next man up for sure.
All right, Brad, let's end with a really quick fill in the blank. Stat wise, if the Hawks do blank well, they set themselves up for a victory tonight.
I would say if the Hawks are able to generate 3-point attempts.
Okay.
They have had trouble with that in the non-Trae Young era. His great passing is missed, and their offense, if you track it, is usually a lot better when they take more threes. They want to take more threes. In addition to, everyone wants to get to the rim. We just talked about that. Everyone wants to get to the rim, but the Hawks like to take shots at the rim and shots from 3. If they get up a lot of threes, they'll be much better off in this game.
Let's go. All right. This one tips off at 7 p.m. Central Time. Central Time. That's not in Atlanta. It's an 8 o'clock p.m. tip if you're watching from Atlanta. Brad, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Happy to do it.